This is a little bit of some background to the piece, the Rondo alla Turk by Mozart. And I think if you're going to be playing a piece, and we can find some history out about it, it's nice to be able to use that to help you be able to play it more like the composer intended it to be played. So I thought I'd give you some background on the history of the piece. And this is definitely not exhaustive. I just Googled a few different things and kind of followed some trails and got some interesting facts. But this, you might be able to find out more information. So, the Rondo alla Turk is really one of Mozart's most famous works. It's for keyboard. It's from the Piano Sonata number 11 in A major. Although you'll notice that when you start the Rondo alla Turk, Mozart used A major and A minor. And so you'll notice that we've done some of the theory in that to be able to look and see what key it starts out in, but you're going to notice that it goes from A minor to A major. And it's thought to have been composed in 1783. Now, understanding the history, what was happening in the late 1700s in Europe, everything Turkish was popular. It had to do with style, had to do with music, and this, if you've heard of the Ottoman Empire, this is another way of talking about the Turkish Empire. But at that point, they were doing a lot of war, trying to take over other areas, and they were getting into Europe. And Mozart lived in Austria. And at this time, I believe he was in Vienna at the time. And so these Ottoman war bands of warriors were coming, and one of the things said that there were a number of battles, like at least a dozen of battles, that they were skirmishes they were having around there, and the army was camped out there right outside of Vienna. So that's interesting background to know, because when the Ottoman armies traveled, they brought a band with them. They were called Janissary bands, and it's the oldest form of military marching band in the world. And these bands were made up of infantry fighters that were from the Sultan's household, soldiers that would have been in his household, and they were trained from childhood to be part of this band. And then they also had Christian subjects that would be in there. So remember, the Ottomans would have been Muslim, and part of what they were doing was spreading their Muslim territory, and they were doing this during the 1700s. So part of the Austrian point of view about the war was the survival of Christianity against the powerful Muslim enemy that was coming against them. Probably Mozart could hear the bands playing outside of the town, so the music of the bands was influencing him, and not just him, but other composers during that classical time period. Michael Haydn and Gluck, they were also composing music that had these Turkish elements to them. So interesting, one of the sources said that Mozart kind of westernized the sound of this, and they were saying that they felt like it undermined the integrity of the band music itself. So the source said it straddles the line between cultural appropriation and subversion. And so it seems maybe like Mozart was trying to make a political statement with writing the Turkish rondo. As far as the rondo itself, it's not exactly like a normal rondo, because usually you'd have your A that just keeps getting, you come back to your A after the different, B, A, C, A, D, A, that kind of thing. But when Mozart did this, the form, and you might want to jot this down, fortunately you can review, push rewind if you want to. It's A, B, C, D, E, C, A, B, C, and then a coda. And each of those sections are repeated except for the coda part. An interesting fact I found along my way was in 2014, 4 pages from the original manuscript that Mozart wrote were found at the Budapest National Library. So those are some interesting facts, and you can understand why there's a I think you, as you play through and we start to get it up to tempo a little more, you're going to get that feeling of the marching band, and you can kind of start to listen a little bit more, like, oh, can I hear maybe drum beats or that kind of thing that would make me feel like he was trying to depict a marching band in this piece. Kind of is interesting when you think about it. If it's coming from a marching band perspective, this is played in so many different tempos that I'm just wondering that the people who like to play it really, really fast, I don't think you could march to it that fast. So this is one of the reasons why I think it's interesting that we find out the history of the piece so that we play it as correct, as accurately as we can, the way Mozart wanted it to sound. One website that I found that I thought was interesting, but I didn't delve too far into it, was I'll spell it sensq.com, and there had some more interesting background about the piece itself, and I found that you can go to YouTube and listen to Janissary band music, and it was kind of interesting. So there's a little bit of background on Mozart's alla Turk.